Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today we have the Benchmade Mediator. This is a brand new knife from Benchmade's Black class. If you don't know about the Black class, that is the more tactical, law enforcement, military, first responder kind of stuff. It is a bit smaller than a lot of those you see in that class, but I do not have a problem with it. A lot of people refer to it as kind of like looking like an automatic Benchmade 940, which that's not an insult. That's a good thing. I'll do some comparisons with the 940-1 here coming up in just a moment. About 250 bucks, not inexpensive, but not bad at all for what you're getting. S90V, some really nicely done contoured, G10 scales, deep carry clip like you see off of the bug out, and it is definitely in that, fully blacked out Black class motif, which is not at all unsurprising. A lot of Black classes are like this. You're getting a Cerakote on the blade. And yeah, just completely blacked out, a bit tactical looking. I will say I was so eager to get my hands on this that I did break one of my own rules. This does not have a factory edge on it. I usually like to review knives with a factory edge, but I really wanted to get one of these. And my buddy Jeremy was nice enough to loan it to me, and he is amazing at sharpening, and he could not resist the temptation to put a new edge on it. And I don't blame him. We'll get to that in just a minute. But yeah. Very, very shiny, big edge. That is not what they normally look like. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking about cutting and all that stuff. I kind of have a guess because, like I said, this is inspired heavily by the 940. Probably cuts about like a 940. So I'll compare it to that a little bit, but we'll see when we get to that point. But yes, it is a push-button auto. Very, very smooth. It does have a safety on it when it's closed, not when it's open, moron. Yeah, whatever. Take it. I can take it or leave the safeties. I guess if this is meant for more kind of LEO, and tactical stuff, maybe you want the safety, but I don't usually like safeties on my automatics. I don't really see the point in them as long as the button is recessed, which this one is. But pretty cool looking knife, I do have to say. And just this feels very quality. You're going to take or leave the completely blacked out aesthetic. It does come in a partially serrated as well, by the way, which a lot of law enforcement people and military and stuff really appreciate. So it does come in a half serrated. This is obviously the plain edge version. Let's do some specs and some size comparisons before we get too much farther here. Just kind of line this up. These are all 1/2 inch squares. You have an overall length of 7 3/4 inches, blade length of 3.3 inches. Blade thickness of 0.12 inches, handle thickness of 0.52 inches, and a weight of 2.9 ounces according to my scale. So not too shabby for an auto with all the auto-ness inside of it and all that stuff. Let's do our usual size comparisons here. We'll start out with our Spydercos. We have the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. You can see it's just a little bit shorter than that. Your Spyderco Para 3. Just a little bit longer than that, and move them in the camera. There we go. And now we'll bring out one Benchmade pair. We're going to bring another Benchmade here in a moment, but let's start off with these. You have your full-size Benchmade Griptilian and the full-size Benchmade Bug Out. So yeah, a little bit closer in size overall to the Bug Out than it is to the Griptilian. And now we're going to bring out just a couple of other automatics here that I have. Another out the side, very popular. This is the ProTech Newport. See, just a little bit bigger than the Newport. And it's an OTF, but it's still an auto. We have the Microtech UTX 85. So just a little bit bigger than both of those. Now, oh, and what the heck? It's laying here. The Guardian Tactical Recon 035. Very similar in size to that knife. Also a very kind of tactical sort of automatic. Now let's bring out the 940 because we do want to talk about that a little bit, because a lot of people just do call this an automatic 940, which again, I do not think is an insult in any way whatsoever, because I love the 940. This is a 940-1 with the same S90V steel. This is a bit more expensive than than the Mediator. Not dramatically so, but a small bit. You know, carbon fiber and all that stuff. But yeah, you can see why people call it that. Very similar in size, very similar in overall sort of shape. Blade grind is a little bit higher on the 940, but I'm guessing the thickness behind the edge on these two is probably pretty similar stock, which is pretty thick. This is like 28 thousandths, something like that. Imagine you're probably looking at, you know, that high 20s, low 30s on the Mediator. So it is not going to be a slicing dream, but this is meant to be more kind of a tactical knife. It is definitely an excellent piercer. You have the same kind of reverse tanto thing going on. More of a straight back, but the same kind of thing going on. It is going to be an excellent piercer, though, for absolutely sure. Ergonomics on this feel a little bit better than a 940. It's just a little bit more curved, fills the hand a bit more. No complaints there. You do get a really nice sharpening choil on this, though I will say that is very nice. This was not added by Jeremy. This is what they look like, which is really cool to see, a very proper sharpening choil on there. And so, yeah, the blade, S9EV, it's a great steel. It's not easy to sharpen. It takes a long time. It's one that I don't enjoy sharpening at all. It does hold an edge for freaking ever, though. So don't complain about that. I wish it came in a non-coated blade version. I would probably be snapping one up if it did. I just have enough, you know, knives with coated blades, especially autos, and I'm just kind of over it. But it is the Cerakote, the Benchmade Cerakote holds up really, really well. I can't really complain about that. And I get for, you know, kind of the more tactical applications, they're probably going to want the black. But for those of us that buy black class knives because we want to pretend to be tactical, I would like it to be, you know, the same finish as the S9EV, you know, on the 940, that kind of stonewashy finish. I would rather see that, but that's a tiny little thing. But pretty good blade. Just don't expect it to be a slicing dream. It's going to cut fine. It's going to have that usual Benchmade, you know, that not pretty but really good working edge out of the box, and it's going to cut fine. It's going to pierce like a mofo. I would like to see a bit thinner behind the edge, but that's maybe do the grind up a bit higher. I don't know, but the blade, I think, is good for what this knife is intended for. Ergonomically, as I alluded to earlier, it's excellent. I really do like it. It just feels like a 940, but better. It just fills my hand a little bit better. The jimping's in a really good spot. I can kind of feel this little hump this little abrupt edge, I guess, on the butt of the blade, but it's nothing I would really complain too much about. It's fairly well smoothed out. No hot spot from the pocket clip. I really do like the ergos on it, and this is a really good blend of grippy, but not going to tear your pants up, which I always do appreciate that. As far as the carry goes, bring out Yale Wranglers Mark II. It carries really well. It carries almost as good as the 940 does. It's just a little bit taller in the pocket, but you're not really going to notice it very much. Super easy to slide your hand past. You've got no flipper tab, obviously, because it's an auto, so there's nothing sticking out there. Very lightweight. Very, very kind of discreet for a black class knife, I do have to say. It doesn't take up much room in the pocket. Carries really, really, really well. No complaints there whatsoever. Now, as far as the action goes, kicks pretty good. I do have to say, you saw the camera vibrate there. It does kick pretty good. Now, does it kick quite like a ProTech does? Now, it's not quite as snappy as a ProTech. It's really good, but it doesn't quite have that bang, you know, like a ProTech does. It's got a pretty good bang, but not as good as that one. So she said, yeah, it's pretty darn good. I have no complaints. I will say on closing, very, very, very smooth. There's no like creakiness or anything like that. There was on this when I got it, but the previous owner, or current owner, I should say, did mention that, you know, he did some dirty stuff with it, so it probably got gummed up a little bit. So not anything vulgar. He just was cutting stuff that was dirty. Sorry, Jeremy, I made you sound like a weirdo for a second there. But he told me I could take it apart and clean it up. I did. It definitely needed it. And once I did that, it's just as smooth as butter. And I have to say, as autos go, it wasn't too sweary to take it apart and put it back together. It took me a second. I had to sit back for a minute and figure, okay, how does this go back together? Because as usual, when you take an auto apart, be careful. Usually a spring goes flying, and it was the spring for the push button. And I was like, where does that go back in there? It took me a second to figure that out. But once I figured all that out, went back together very, very easily. Much easier than like a Benchmade Access Lock, definitely. So, yeah, not too bad. But action's really good, and it's not a nightmare to take apart. Overall, I really like this. And I think for 250 bucks, the materials you're getting are it's perfectly fine. Like I said, aesthetically, I just wish you could get it without a coated blade, but I'm always going to say that on knives, you can only get with a coated blade. So that's just a personal hiccup of mine. The blade is not going to be a slicing machine. I don't know if it's even going to be as good as a 940, which I don't consider to be in that category either. But it's very good for what it needs to be. And apparently, yeah, Jeremy can put a screaming edge on, because this one is sharp as hell and it slices really well. It is a pretty thin blade stock, so it's not going to be atrocious, but yeah, so just keep that in mind. But I think especially for what it's designed for, it is excellent. And I think it's even a pretty good EDC automatic. I really do. Just the lightweight, how easy it is to carry. Pretty cool knife from Benchmade. Very excited to see that. They have made some really good autos in the past. People don't think of them as that, but they do a really good job. And this is no exception. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.